everyone, to Unchained Hope and Healing from Addiction. We are so glad that you are joining us tonight on our fourth night. And we're going to learn about our third breakthrough tonight. What a great journey, a blessed journey that we have been on. I hope that you have been blessed and you've been sharing the content, telling your friends and your family all about this series. But first things first, we want to make sure that everyone is registered for this event. If you have already registered, if you've already texted Unchained to the number you see right there on your screen, you are good to go. But if this is your first night, or maybe you've been on this journey and you haven't texted and haven't registered for this event, we want everyone to be registered. So just text the word Unchained to the number you see right there on your screen. And as we've said before and all through this series is we will never share your information when you fill out the promptings there once you text Unchained. We will only send you a text to remind you about the meeting that is happening that night at 7:30 and also let you know what the topic is going to be for that night. Also, when you register, you will be entered into a drawing to receive our speaker, Richie Halverson, his book titled The Darkness Will Not Overcome. It's a wonderful book, a wonderful resource to have in your library. I have read it. It was a blessing to me, and I'm sure that it will be a blessing for you. So make sure that you register. Make sure you enter. Text Unchained to the number you see right there on your screen. We'll be giving away that book every single night. So make sure you register. Also, whether you're joining us on YouTube, whether you're joining us on Facebook, we're asking everyone to write in the comment below where you are joining us from. Where are you joining us from? Are you joining us right here in Raleigh, where it is being presented? Are you joining us in Hickory, North Carolina? Maybe you're joining us in Chattanooga, Tennessee. Maybe you're joining us in Pensacola, Florida, or Omak, Washington. Maybe you're joining us in Dallas, Texas. Just comment in the section below, in the comments below, where you are joining us from. Also, as you write in the comment below, let us know, are you watching it with your small group, with your family? We would love to know where you're watching it and how you're watching it and who you are watching this series with. And after you write in the comments where you're joining us from, if you're joining us on YouTube, just hit subscribe. And then even on YouTube, you can share. On Facebook, like the comment or like the video, and then, or like the series. And then after that, hit that share button to get the content out there, because I am sure that every single one of us knows someone who is battling addiction. Or maybe you know someone that knows someone that knows someone that is battling addiction. We want to get this content out there because we want it to be a blessing and a help to everyone so they can live an unchained life, hope and healing, so they can live their best life that they were made to live. So tonight, we are going to learn about our third breakthrough. Our third breakthrough in Richie Halverson's presentation tonight. But as we are watching the presentation, right after that, we're going to be joined by Richie Halverson to go through a Q&A, a question and answer. And so as you're watching the presentation, if a question comes to your mind that you would like answered, write it in the comment below. Maybe you're saying, well, I have a question, but I want it to be confidential. That's okay. You can text your question to the number on the screen, the same one that you registered with. And it will remain anonymous and it will remain confidential. So remember, ask your questions in the comments below as the presentation is going through. For our third breakthrough tonight, friends, here is Richie Halverson with our presentation, our third breakthrough. After that, we will come back, be joined by Richie on a Q&A section. So here's Richie Halverson with his presentation tonight.
Welcome to Unchained, Hope and Healing from Addiction. You know, it's not easy to break the chains that hold us back. It doesn't happen overnight. But if we work it, it works. That's a saying that I would often hear in the program. Keep coming back. It works if we work it. So far in our series, we've seen how each of us have chains that hold us back, something keeping you from living life to its fullest. The same power and principles that broke through my chain of opioid addiction can break through yours. Whatever is holding you back. But we've got to break through the denial and get honest. We've got to get real. We've got to say, you know what, I need help. We also have to believe that help is possible. Because without hope, a miracle cannot happen. We've got to be open-minded. We've got to believe there is something bigger, stronger than us that can. Step 1, I can't. Step 2, he can. Step 3, I'll let him. Now that we have a hope that a miracle can happen, it's time to step out in faith. People have asked me, what is the difference between belief and faith? So we learned about belief last time. So if I move to a town and a friend of mine tells me a good mechanic and I go to them and I say, hey, I'd like this to get fixed. I believe, because of what my friend told me, that I can take my car to this mechanic and he'll do a good job. However, if I take my car to him and he does do a good job, the next time I bring it back, then it's not belief or hope, it's faith. I know that he's going to do a good job. Now that we have hope a miracle can happen, it's time to step out in faith. Faith is the manifestation of belief and trust in God. James 2:20 says faith apart from works is useless. It doesn't do us any good. James 2:26, as the body apart from the spirit is dead, so also faith apart from works is dead. James 2:18 in the Message, faith and works fits together hand in glove. James 2:14, what good is it if you say you have faith but don't show it? Can that kind of faith save anyone? So if you want to live an unchained life, you have to start living what you say you believe. That's what faith is. We have an excellent example of faith in the 5th chapter of John. So we've looked at the 3rd chapter, we've looked at the 4th chapter, and now we're going to look at the 5th chapter. In the 5th chapter, we have this guy, and he's laying by a pool. John 5:2-6. Now there is in Jerusalem by the sheep gate a pool in Aramaic called Bethesda, which has 5 roofed colonnades. In these lay a multitude of invalids, blind, lame, and paralyzed. One man was there who had been an invalid for 38 years. When Jesus saw him lying there and knew that he had already been there in a long time, he said to him, "Do you want to be healed?" Now at first it seems like a pretty stupid question. Do I want to be healed? Well, what do you think? Verse 5 says he had been there in the same sick state for 38 years. I wonder, how many years have you been in the same state that you're in right now? How many years are you going to just feel drowned by the debt? How many years are you going to feel chained by circumstance and problems? How many years are you going to be chained to a dysfunctional and toxic relationship? For 38 years, this man has been coming to the pool only to leave the same way he showed up. How many seminars are you going to go to on anger and still leave the same way you showed up? How many classes on forgiveness do we have to go to finally have a breakthrough? Now, some translations say, do you want to be healed? Others say, do you want to be well? But my favorite says, do you want to be whole? The Greek word isn't just talking physical, it's talking spiritual, it's talking emotional. We are physical, emotional, mental, spiritual beings. And whenever one of those elements are out of whack, we don't feel the fullest, we don't live to the fullest of our potential. Man, God's number one goal for us has always been wholeness. Which is why when you ask God for help, I've noticed something. He'll always go deeper than you really want him to go. At first, I just wanted some help with a drug problem. But then he kept digging and digging because you see, the drugs were only a symptom of a much bigger, deeper problem. Just being drug-free won't give you wholeness. Have you ever heard of the term a dry drunk? A dry drunk, they're just as miserable and mean as before. They're just without drinking. In fact, most of the time, a dry drunk is so miserable to be around, the people that live with them wish they would go back to drinking. Anything short of wholeness isn't enough. You see, until you feel completely unchained, you'll never feel and experience life to its fullest potential. And so in verse 3, it says, there were a multitude of invalids, blind, lame, and paralyzed. Just as there was a variety of problems at this pool, there are a variety of problems that all of us are facing in our lives. Some of us have money problems. Some of us have marital problems. Some of us have health problems. Some of us have job problems. Some of us have drug problems. Some of us have eating disorders. Some of us have bad attitude problems. And like this broken man, what we often do is we look at a pool and we think, if I could just get that, everything would work out. If I could just get the degree, everything would work out. If I could just get more money, everything could work out. If I could just get married, everything would work out. If I could just get unmarried, everything would work out. But those things won't give you wholeness. Jesus asked, do you want to be whole? Not, do you want to get married? Not, do you want to be rich? Because to give you those things wouldn't be nice. It would be torture, because then you would believe that those things can give you wholeness, that they can make you happy, and they can't. Do you want to be whole? And the sick man answered, well, I have no one to put me into the pool. That's the wrong answer. The pool won't give you wholeness. Popularity won't give you wholeness. Pay raise won't give you wholeness. A good waistline won't give you wholeness. A new spouse won't give you wholeness. Only an experience with something bigger, better, and more powerful than that stuff will give you wholeness. You see, the legend of this story and the legend during this time was that if you got in the water at just the right time, when it moved, that you would be healed. But you know what? You would think that at some point over 38 years, this guy would have realized, I don't think it works. I've been here for 38 years, and I've never seen anybody healed by this pool. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. How many times do you have to go to the dope to realize that the dope doesn't work? How many times do you got to go to that website to realize, it's not worth the shame that I'm going to feel? How many times are you going to realize that the worrying never works, money never works, arguing never works, complaining never works? But this is the thing, God is offering something that works right now. Like with the paralytic, Jesus is asking each of us, do you want to be whole? The English Standard Version calls them invalids. The King James Version calls them impotent. It's a word that means ineffectual, inadequate, useless. In a Greek word, it means weak, sickly. But you know what? Think of some of the amazing people in history that have had disabilities. Helen Keller and Stevie Wonder and Ray Charles. And you've got so many different people that didn't allow their disability to define them or their circumstance to stop them. And so there's got to be more than physical disability here. You see, I believe the greatest obstacle to their wholeness, to being unchained, wasn't physical, but it was spiritual. It was emotional. It was a lack of faith. It wasn't a lack of their health. It was a lack of their belief, their faith. And the sick man answered, sir, I have no one to put me into the pool, and the water is stirred up, and while I'm going, another steps down before me. And you see, he's blaming other people for his current situation. It's always easier to blame someone else for what's wrong with you, but you've got to take responsibility for your own life. You can't blame anyone else. No one is getting between you and wholeness but you. We can't blame anyone else for our chains. And look, we may not be responsible for everything that happens to us in life, but we are responsible with how we respond with what happens to us in life. And so here we have Jesus, this miracle worker, the resurrection and life. He's touched people and healed them. The blind see, the disabled walk, the mute can talk, the deaf can hear. He's standing right in front of this guy asking, do you want to be whole? And this guy brings up a pool. He's looking past Jesus. Hey, Jesus, could you move over? I need to keep an eye on the pool and make sure nobody gets in there before me. You see, his faith is weak, not his legs. His faith, not his legs, are what's coming between him and wholeness. He's so focused on his present dilemma, he can't see the solution staring at him in his face. In John 5:6, I love it. It says, Jesus already knew that he had been there for a long time. You see, your marriage needs help. God already knows. Your body needs healing. God already knows. You have a spending problem. God already knows. He knows how long you've been where you are, and he knows how long you've been going through what you're going through. Even when we don't know what to do, God already knows. Do you want to be whole? And the sick man answered, Sir, I have no one to put me into the pool. Jesus just cuts him off and he gets to the point. Get up, take up your bed, and walk. You see, the principle of faith is the getting up. You have to get up. This guy wasn't healed until he got up. Information alone won't lead to transformation. You can go to seminar after seminar. You can go through this whole series. Information alone won't lead to transformation. Information plus participation, that equals transformation. You've got to participate in the unchaining experience. You've got to participate in this process. It works if and only if we work it. Faith is living what you have learned. It's putting your life in God's hands and trusting him. If it works when you work it. The moment the paralytic practiced what he heard, the chain of paralyzation was broken in his life. Someone who's been stuck for 38 years is moving. But the question to you is, will you trust him enough to just get up right now? Maybe you don't know what you believe. Maybe you don't even know if there is a God. Will you just give it a chance? Would you just give it a try to see if there's something to it? Ephesians 2:4-6 says, But God, being rich in mercy because of the great love with which he loved us, even when we were dead in our trespasses, made us alive together with Christ. By grace you have been saved. And check this out, verse 6, and raised us up with him. Get up. And seated us with him in the heavenly places in Christ Jesus. I don't know about you, but I want to raise up today. This message is for people who are ready to rise up. This series are for people who are done rolling over and giving up. Stop letting your addiction chain you. Stop letting the past paralyze you. Stop letting haters get inside your head. Do you want to be whole? At the end of this scene in John 5:8, it says that the Jews were seeking all the more to kill Jesus. When Jesus raised Lazarus from the dead in John 11:53, it says from that day on, they made plans to put him to death. So think about this. Every miracle Jesus performed was a death sentence for Jesus. He knew what healing this man would cost. He knew that to make this man's legs move meant that his own legs would need to be nailed to a cross and could not move. For this man to be able to pick up his bed and walk, he would have to pick up his cross and walk. The only way to give wholeness was if he went into the grave and died. To break your chains, Christ's body was broken. That's how much God loves you. Listen, no one else has ever done that for you. No one has ever done what God has done for you. So why not trust him when he says, get up? Why don't you give them a chance? Do you want to live an unchained life? Do you want to be whole? The question is coming through to each of us right now. And there's only one real good answer. Yes, I want wholeness. Well, then you got to get up. You got to make the decision right now to get up. What you've been doing hasn't worked, so why not try something new?
Welcome back, friends. What a powerful, powerful presentation from Richie. And right now we are going to be joined by Richie for our question and answer time. And man, Richie, thanks for that message. It's so relevant. Just get up. I mean, not just information, but participate. Get up and don't let the chains keep you back from the life that you were created to live. Thank you so much for that, man. I was very, very touched. And I know that other people were as well from that message. But we have a few questions that had come in, especially questions about when they heard your testimony and your battle with addiction and your freedom. So questions came in on that presentation. So we have 3 questions for you tonight, Richie, about your life and your freedom and your addiction. So here we go. So the first question is this. So when you were going through that and battling that and overcoming that, right? So question is what was it like for your family and children as this was all happening? So what was it like for your family and children?
Well, that's a good question. That's a question I get quite a bit, because as anybody who's watching this now or are going to be watching this knows, especially if it's hit close to home, is it's a nightmare. And as I have since been in recovery, experienced kind of the other side of addiction, where you see someone near and dear to your heart lying to you and stealing from you and some of these things, and it's terrible. And so it was bad. I was fortunate in that my children were still pretty young. So my 2 oldest were alive when I was going through this addiction, but my 2 youngest have all been since I've been clean. So that's and then Caleb was probably 4 or 5 when I finally got clean. Maybe 5, 5 or 6 at the oldest. And so there's still some things that he kind of remembers, as far as they come and visit me in treatment, and of course it was daddy's sick and we need to visit him. Things like that. Probably didn't understand why I wasn't there. And kids are smart, even at a very young age. My daughter, Haley, she was only about 2 to 3 when I got clean. So I was fortunate in that God was able to, I surrendered to this new life, like that paralytic that was laying beside the pool. I got up finally, and I was willing to take God by the hand and let him pull me up. And so they were spared from a lot of that pain. But, Brittany and I, we had to go through a lot of that experience, and it was difficult. And, that isn't healed overnight. That takes time. And in fact, in one of our presentations coming up pretty soon, I talk about forgiveness, and I talk more about detail about going through that reconciliation. There has to be this forgiveness. There has to be this healing, because I lied to my wife for years, and I stole from her, and I used up all of our money. In fact, right before I got clean, before I went to treatment that last time, I had bought my kids some Christmas presents. and with money I didn't have, but then I needed to get some drugs. And so I took those presents back to the store, got my money, and used drugs. I mean, this is the kind of insanity that drugs and addiction does. And you know, maybe those of you who are listening right now don't maybe identify with that extreme. We all do insane things that we know we shouldn't do. You know, some of us, maybe we're struggling with terrible health. You know, we're on the verge of being diabetic, or maybe we are, or we have you know, heart failure and congestive heart failure, but yet we still eat and do things that we know we should not be doing, but we just keep doing it. And that's a part of that insanity. You know, we just keep doing that over and over again. The good news is God can break that chain, and he can heal all wounds, but we got to be willing to continue to surrender to him. So the good news is my family and I, we got the healing we needed, but I don't want people to think that it just happened overnight, you know, that it was some magic wand fix. Yeah, God heals us, but as was mentioned, faith is not just information, it's participation. I had to be willing to go to the counselors. Brittany had to be willing to go to the counseling. We had to be willing to work a program of healing. And only until we did that were we able to be healed. So, yeah, I hope that answers that question.
All right, good stuff. Good stuff. So, and that leads to the second question there is, how did your marriage heal? You know, you kind of talked about it in the first question a little bit, but how did your marriage heal?
Yeah. So, again, a lot of prayer, a lot of time, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. You know, in the beginning, it was a struggle because, see, when I got clean, and I saw this happen to a lot of other people. But I kind of wanted that healing to happen all at once. And in the presentation, and in a couple of presentations, I really go into detail about it. But you know, I wanted that to be reconciled right away. You know, and I'd be doing good, and I just wasn't seeing the kind of. Although my wife was very happy for my how well I was doing, there was still a lot of hurt and pain there, and so I had to give her time. And there were moments where I was just kind of like, well, man, isn't she happy for me, proud for me? And she very much so was, but it takes time. And, you know, sometimes I've heard couples in recovery say things like this. They'll say, well, why should I give them a pat on the back for not using drugs? I never use drugs, you know, or why should I do this? You know, say, you know, congratulations on having a job. I've always had a job, you know, and I understand that sentiment. But for someone who is caught into the vicious cycle of addiction, you know, that those are big accomplishments. So, you know, it's hard to detach our you know, our emotions and identify with that. It can be very hurtful and hard. But the good news is we didn't give up. We just kept going back, working on it. We just held on. Both of us, you know, she never gave up on me, and I never gave up on her. So you know, God never gave up on us as a couple. So it took a lot of time to heal. Time heals all wounds. Time and work. But right. You know, if you just have to, you know, people watching right now, any married couple can identify with this thing. You know, you don't even have to struggle with addiction. There's this thing where we can, you know, maybe hold on to resentments or hold on to pain, you know, get upset with someone. We keep getting caught into a vicious cycle, and we kind of take it personally, like, man, you would think they would love me and not do that. And when someone's caught in the obsessive compulsive nature of addiction, you know, they have given up their freedom and their ability to make their own choices. And that's not to take away their responsibility. They're still responsible for their actions, but you know, and it's very hard to do, but you just can't internalize that, even though that's easier said than done. The best thing for for someone to do if your spouse is struggling with addiction or in active addiction or whatever that addiction may be, pornography, drugs, alcoholism, you name it, a terrible temper, anger management is there. When they're not willing to go get help, then you go get help. You go to the counselor and you talk to them. We can't make anybody do anything we don't want them to do. So you go get the help that you need. And then from that, that's going to give you an outlet to begin to heal. So that was very important. And that's what my wife needed when I was out there using. And that's what we needed on the other side. Because once the drugs are over, once you get clean, that's only, you're only halfway there. There's a whole other journey of struggles that has to happen if it's going to get through it. So, yeah.
Right. Okay. Good stuff. So, so the third and final question is this: what was your daily routine when you got clean?
Yeah, that's great, and that's very much with this, tonight's breakthrough of faith. Sometimes we talk about faith like it's just this. There is a difference between belief and faith, as the presentation brought out. Belief is believing, having hope that something is true, but faith is belief plus action. So for me to be clean, belief was that, what, God can help me through this. Belief was, I believe recovery may work. There may be something to this 12 steps. There may be something to this. Maybe I can. You got to have that hope, but then it's got to go to the next level, and you got to start practicing what you preach, just to use that cliche. And so, I had to start doing the things that clean people do. So, that meant for me, when I first got clean, I went to 90 meetings in 90 days. It's like I talked to a lot of people in recovery, people who are struggle with addiction, and they want to get clean by going to one meeting a month. But you didn't use once a month, you used every day. So it takes some work. I had to go to a meeting every day. If I used every day, I needed to go to a meeting every day. I had to start praying every day. Not just these foxhole prayers, God help me, when I got into trouble, but I had to start developing that relationship with God. I had to start spending time with him and talking to him, going to him with my struggles, going to him when I was upset. I needed structure in my life, and I would spend time reading positive things, whether it maybe was the Bible or maybe someone who's watching right now. It's like they're not there yet. They don't really have any interest in the Bible, where there's a lot of other positive books that can help you grow spiritually. And I personally don't believe there's any book as good as the Bible, but I had to read some positive stuff. And one of those books was a couple of the literature from some of the 12-step groups that I went. I would read other stories of people who were healing. So a meeting every day, praying every day, having time, bringing good stuff into my life and into my mind, and starting to build structure to my life, and staying committed to that. I started working the steps, because that's where information begins to join participation. When I went into the, a lot of people say this when they go into the rooms of recovery, when they finally hit bottom, they say, well, if they had told me to stand on my head, I would have stood on my head if it could keep me clean. And that was literally my attitude. I would just soaked it in. And I started, going to meetings, going to service work. I started giving back to the community. I started working those 12 steps and writing out the pains that I had experienced through my addiction. I started writing through the defects of my character. I started putting it on paper, because when you put it on paper, it loses power. This goes for everybody right now who's listening, regardless of your habit, your hang up, or your hardship, or your heartache. put it on paper, write it out, write out the feelings that you're feeling, and you're going to find that they lose a little bit of power. They lose a little bit of the power of your life. Secrets keep us sick. And so that was another thing I started doing. I started putting it out on paper, and I had a sponsor. This was someone I could call every day and have accountability. In addiction, I isolated from everybody. I didn't want to be around anybody, even my closest family. And that has to change, because when it comes to recovery, you cannot do it by yourself. You've got to have people in your life that you can rely on. And so that was another thing that was so key, is calling a sponsor, talking to someone. People who are watching right now, do you have an accountability partner? Do you have a mentor, or are you mentoring someone? We were not created to be lone rangers. We were created to have people in our lives that we could rely on. And so that was another thing that I did. So there was all kinds of things. You know, I didn't really know how to stay clean, but my sponsor had multiple years of recovery, and he did. So I started listening to him instead of thinking I knew everything. And then finally, after I had been clean for a year, and I had worked through the majority of the steps that first year, and when you work through those steps, when you get to 12, and every group's a little different, but in the 12-step group that I went to, once we reach that 12th step and finish it, we go right back to the first one, and we start working through them again, because they all represent spiritual principles. And we never stop needing honesty. We never stop needing faith. We never stop learning courage. And when I work the steps now, it may not be because I struggle with drugs, but maybe it's because I struggle with my patience. I struggle with the bad temper. Maybe you struggle with something else. And so you're always in this mode of learning and recovering and growing. So, that's the thing about the steps. We just kept working through it. And so when I finished all 12 in the first year, because I had to keep myself busy, that was another way I stayed clean. I stayed busy. And so I had someone come up to me and ask me to be their sponsor, which was really an amazing experience, because, I went from, it just was a miracle to me, because nobody ever wanted my opinion or thoughts on anything. No one wanted my guidance, because I was struggling with drugs for so long, but here was someone who saw something in my life that they wanted. Something I saw in my sponsor's life. And so he comes up to me and he says, "Hey, would you be my sponsor?" And I was just like, yeah, absolutely. And I started telling him to do the same things that my sponsor told me. And then, man, once a month we would get together and have these sponsorship parties where, all the people I sponsored would come, and then all the people my sponsor sponsored would come, and everybody who, and his sponsor, we'd get together and have these monthly get-togethers, just a bunch of guys getting together and being honest and encouraging each other. Now, let me ask you, is that men, those of you males that are watching right now, how many times do you do that? You don't need that just as an addict. Everybody needs that. So we would do things like that. Once a year, we got together and we went to a park, like 5 sponsors up from me, and we would have a camping trip once a year. We'd all get together. And I mean, these were hundreds and hundreds of guys getting together, cooking out, having fun, clean. People who you couldn't trust around your money ever. Here's a group of people that are praying together, that are staying clean together, and they're healing together. And let me tell you, the Bible has something like that. And you know what it's called? It's called discipleship. But how often do we see that kind of camaraderie and that kind of activity happening on that level? And that's where we could learn a lot. The church could learn a lot from these recovery groups as far as the discipleship factor. So those are some things. That's how I stayed clean. It wasn't through my strength. It's through God's strength and the people he brought into my life. And it happened from relying on other people and building relationships that were positive. Because you show me your friends and I'll tell you your future. You know, we become like the people we surround ourselves with. If you surround yourself with negative, toxic people, guess what? It's going to rub off on you. If you surround yourself with positive, encouraging people who are going somewhere, guess what? Some of that's going to rub off on you. So surround yourself with people. I still get with my sponsor and sponsors sometimes. I still get with these guys because they're still spiritual mentors in my life. So that's just a little glimpse of how I did it. And so absolutely. And we all need these things, not just people who struggle with addiction, but all of us.
That's good stuff. Good stuff, Richie. It just reinforces what the Bible says, that we need each other. You know, that we can't do it on our own, and being lonely is not good. I mean, that's what God says in the beginning. It's not good for man to be alone, because, you know, not just men in general, but everybody, women too. I mean, you know, a lot of mischief, what's the word? Mischief, whatever it is, happens when you by yourself. So that's good stuff. We appreciate it. We look forward to more of your presentations, more of healing, more being unchained, powerful. Thank you so much, Richie, for joining us for question and answer. Have a blessed night, my friend. Blessed night. But at this time, it's time for our book giveaway. And so our winner tonight, I wish we had a drum. We could play a drum roll here, but our winner tonight is Amin Davis. Amin Davis. So everyone in the comment section below, let's write congratulations, Amin Davis. And we'll be contacting you, Amin, to get you this book here. And remember, if you want to be entered into the drawing to receive this powerful and wonderful book, a great resource to have in your library, just make sure that you register by texting the word Unchained on the number you see right there on your screen. And like we said, each day when you text it, you'll be prompted to fill out some stuff. And only information that your information will have is we will be texting you each and every day to remind you of the series happening every night for the next 6 days, I believe it is, that we have left. And we'll tell you the topic as well. And so, talking about that, don't forget that tomorrow night, we're going to be meeting right here again at 7:30 for our fourth breakthrough on Richie Halverson's presentation. And we look forward to joining together again on this journey of unchained hope and healing from addiction. Have a great night, friends, and we'll see you tomorrow night here at 7:30, Unchained Hope and Healing from Addiction. Good evening.